Hello, lovely Zoe. I'm so happy to have you here. What was I going to say? For those people listening, and for me, because I haven't heard your understanding, what does sacrosanct mean for you? And then what is sacrosanct in your life?
Well, I love this question, Ebony, because sacrosanct is a word that it's one of those words where I feel like I kind of know what it means intuitively,
Yeah.
but I could not tell you the dictionary definition in all honesty. So, what it means to me intuitively is obviously sacred. Sacred is like the core of it for me. And kind of, let me feel into it a little bit. It feels like a nourishing kind of held space, and that space is safe as well as nourishing and fulfilling. It allows you to become who you really truly are under all the layers, under all the crap. Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. And what is sacrosanct in my life? Oh my goodness. The first thing is probably just that thing about being true to yourself. I spent decades trying to, literally suppress, cover up, deny, and not even actually know, because it was so covered over. It was so kind of smudged and torn apart at the edges, like frayed at the edges. I couldn't really have told you who I was underneath. And yet I knew there was always a knowledge. It was always there. When I look back, even when I was a small child or a teenager or in my 20s, there was always that nugget that I knew, and those little kind of telltale signs. But I couldn't have told you that consciously. So yeah, that essence of allowing yourself to be and to explore and play, all of those things are sacrosanct to me. And doing that in the most uncensored way you can, both by uncensored from yourself, but also clearly by society, by all of the, yeah, all of those kind of voices that we carry with us when we walk down the street. We're kind of silently judging or maybe not so silently judging ourselves. Do I look too fat in this? Checking yourself in windows and stuff. All of those voices that we carry constantly. Yeah, that's the main thing. And the other big thing is just nature. I spent, again, decades of my life being really hyper allergic to nature.
Literally?
Literally.
Right.
I every time I went outside, or maybe even wasn't outside, I would have hay fever like all year round. I'd get hives from like touching the grass, and oh my god, there's so many different things. Honestly, I got sunburnt really easily. Just everything. It just felt like I was allergic to nature, and as I've healed all the many layers, I mean, clearly it's not done yet, but many, many layers inside and out, I can embrace all of it now. And I can be in nature and actually enjoy it and understand on a, not on a cognitive level, but on an embodied wisdom level, how much nature works with us and for us if we just allow it, instead of constantly trying to, fight it in whatever way that looks like. Yeah. Chocolate. Chocolate's the last one. Definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Being true to yourself, nature and chocolate. I love that as an answer. And the first piece, that being true to yourself piece, I want to talk to you about that a little bit more, because how? because so many people have heard other people say, just be yourself a little bit more, right? And when one is that disconnected, when one has listened to their mother, their father, their teacher, the priest, the TV, the magazine, whatever it is, right, and made that your authority on how you should look, how you should feel, what you should desire, when you should eat, what you should eat, why you should eat it, you reach a certain point and you're unhappy and things aren't working. But to then have you or I go, just express yourself a little bit more, just be true to yourself a bit more, is infuriating, because you just go, how, woman? Right?
Yes.
So I want to spend the rest of our time together getting a little bit, like, diving into that and being like, okay, well, how?
Oh, absolutely. And I love actually that you brought that up, because it is such a key part of it all that that I think we all have to begin to unlock for ourselves. And I will be totally honest as well, in that I get annoyed still sometimes when I read, really beautiful, eloquent, very well considered and thought out posts on this topic and about being more you. And there's a part of me, because I'm still on that, unraveling whatever it is journey, there's still a part of me that is triggered, for want of a better word, triggered by that, because it's kind of it. I guess part of it is, how much more do I need to do? And how it's almost like, how much more are you asking of me, in a way? Because we want to be in our comfort zones, don't we? We're constantly kind of, I have to move out of my comfort zone again. I have to take the blanket off. I have to, move a couple of steps forward, and there always seems to be a little bit more. And it's like, can't I just stay? Haven't I just arrived yet?
Yeah, I definitely used to feel that way. I definitely used to feel that way. And I feel like this podcast, this like, there was a complete dissolution of my old self in order to arrive at this place, right? And in that last ego death and company death and friendship death and yada, right? In that, this time, I have reached a place of, all of it's sacrosanct, and I'm not aiming to be anywhere. I'm there.
Yes.
I am there, wherever the fuck there is. This is me, right? Like, this is me. I am no one's fucking guru. I'm not my own guru. Do you know what? Even if I have it all figured out tomorrow, by the next day, my body's changed, my hormone levels have changed, my desire has changed, the wind has changed, the weather's changed. And so anything that was true yesterday isn't necessarily true today. And so there's a level of being in myself and of myself where I have reached this place of acceptance rather than seeking approval, which I didn't realize that's what I was looking for before, right? So that place of like, when done, comes from a place of, there is a done to get to. Where I'm at now is like, I mean, I know who I am some days, and some days I don't. And some days I'm willing to look underneath something, and other days I'm like, just don't talk to me about that. Because I
think that's the key, honestly. Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of going to come back to, was the cycles, So right now I'm in an exhausted cycle because of all of the shit that I've kind of had to deal with the last month in particular. So yeah, I'm in a phase where I'm just happy to rest. I'm like, okay, let me just, get my duvet and curl up for a bit, because I've done a lot of shifting, over the last month or so. But it's honoring those cycles. And I know we say this, I know this comes up, and I'm so glad that we have these conversations now, because they never existed a few years ago. But actually doing it, and actually when we're in the moment of oh, I should be, you know, you've insert guilty feeling here, kind of, I should be doing more, I should be being more, I should be uncovering more, whatever it is, it still comes up because it's almost ingrained in us from the womb, right? You know, that feeling of having to constantly strive to get to somewhere, that goal-oriented kind of place. And I feel similar to you now in that actually I have to remind myself, I have to remind myself constantly, but I feel very kind of happy if I'm in a phase, then I will honor that. It's not always easy. Wolfie, you know, ride that wild donkey. You know, you've got the whole kind of cycle.
So internet blip, which is fun. I think you were talking about cycles.
Yes.
And phases of being in that, riding the chaos and kind of all of it. And I want to come back round to, like, we set the tone that neither of us are perfect. Both of us are doing this mostly for ourselves. And then we also share it with the world. And one of the things that I love about your work in particular is that it is so unique. It gives people like this incredible opportunity to fully self-express, potentially in a way that they haven't done before.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of pattern interrupt to it, which is pretty cool, because there's so many things, like when you say to people, when you talk about full self-expression, right, they might think, oh, well, I could write, or maybe I could draw, or maybe I could say ideas of how they can do it.
Yes.
And what I love about the work that you do and your kind of whole thing is it's true synergy. I'd love to know how it happened. How did you end up going, you know, I'm doing my healing, I'm on my journey, I want to be more true to myself, I'm catching myself in windows and going and having all these internal critic voices. I know in order to be more true to myself, I'm going to fully self-express by lying on paper with chalk and drawing stuff. Like, help me out here.
Well, your guess is as good as mine, honestly. I always say I channeled it, basically, because it literally just kind of came through me. You know, I was a yoga teacher, like, you know, trained to be a yoga teacher, and like the artist was always there, you know, in me, but I'd never really let her out. And poor Zoe. But yeah, there came a point when I just realized that I had to do this, and I literally just thought, I need to get on some paper. And to begin with, it started with sort of sacred geometry of the body. So working with, you know, the big arcs and circles and moving all around the paper and stuff. And that's really where it started. And then it kind of it evolved gradually into where it is right now. And yeah, you're right. The biggest part of that is about not completely, sorry. You can't completely shut down the logical brain. You know, it's always there. But because you're working so much with the body and with the visual aspect and with both sides of the body, so you're using both left and right hemispheres, left and right hands, and because you're in that, it does basically bypass all of that logical, critical, verbal reasoning kind of stuff, and you're just in it. You're just in that moment. So it's not even like art therapy where you're drawing, because that's typically with your dominant hand alone, and you're doing it just with the hand or maybe the arm, but it's not the whole body. And when you start to allow yourself to use the entire body and then bring in all of that energetic stuff as well. I love, I'm very technical here. It is, again, it's like channeling. So you're allowing that energy to flow through you. First of all, you allow yourself to open up fully, because again, in order to let yourself be fully expressed, you've actually got to work on where you're holding back, where you've got those physical limitations, whether that's just a little bit stiff, or you've not stretched, or you've not opened your arms today, or your hips in particular. When you open all of that up, then there's much more space to allow stuff to flow through and out. And then you're seeing it visually, what you're creating on the paper. So you've got that visual feedback as well, which is a whole other dimension. So there's so many different aspects to it.
And an aspect that you didn't bring up, which I think is also really important, is that it's fun.
Oh my God, yes.
There's a level where, and I think this is again something you and I agree on in this space, right? The personal development space, the self-actualization space,
yes,
the space.
It can be so heavy. Yes. Yeah, it can.
Everyone trying to out philosophize the other and like, but are you trauma informed? And is there science? And don't get me wrong, all that stuff is very important, and I geek out on it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to have a laugh.
Well, also, so yes, I would say that so when I do my membership circle, for example, we have different themes. And the very first theme that I did was pleasure, because so many especially as women, so many of us have really major blocks on even just allowing a little bit of pleasure into our bodies, not even just our minds, but into our bodies. Because there's so many issues around that. And so, but that is a theme that comes into every single session in a way, honestly. It is core to it. When we start to allow ourselves the sensuality, and the multi-sensory kind of levels as well. So you're tapping not just into touch and visual and verbal, because there's music as well. You're also tapping into all of those different kind of energetic senses as well. So I do a lot with eyes closed, so that we're shutting down our primary sense, and allowing ourselves to feel into the kind of energies that we're moving around, that we've created and moving around on the paper. So yeah, play is massive. You're getting messy. You're getting chalk, pastels all over you, bright colors. Actually, you can use any colors you want. I encourage people to use, particularly when they work with me for a bit longer, maybe not in a taster session, but when they work with me a bit longer, I encourage people to use colors that they avoid deliberately or unconsciously. So, bringing in things like blacks, because we're scared of that. We're scared of using that.
That would be my go-to.
So maybe for you it would be white and yellow and kind of
yellow. There's some yellow behind me, and I have been trying to get it into stuff more, right? And I do.
But there's always something. Yeah, there's always
actually pastel, exactly that.
Yeah.
Really bland, pretty colors.
But it's amazing what you can do with simple pastel colors, because, and obviously, you can get really, really juicy, luscious pastels as well, where they're there's some where they literally, it's like butter and the color is so vibrant. But yeah, really getting into all of that and actually just allowing yourself to explore and play and be curious, and not to have that heaviness of, you're right, when we do so much of the personal development stuff, it is kind of, there's a what's the word? I can't think of the word. There's an implied criticism, an implied judgment of yourself, even though we say, you know, be compassionate, be self like loving, all the rest of it, there's still an implied, oh, you know, you haven't fixed this yet.
And that comes back to that thing we were talking about at the beginning, right? Of like always being goal, like, am I there yet?
Yeah.
And like part of it's like, where is there, by the way, right? Like, how would you know when you were done? Because, you know, when I approve of myself, we're back in this loop, right? And so I think one of the other things that comes up around your work and around this kind of work that both you and I are involved in is, oh, it's a luxury. Oh, I can't afford that because it's not, you know, it's not, I'm not pushing myself. I'm not going to get a specific result afterwards. It's, you know, it's very feminine in nature, or very yin in nature. There's allowing, a receiving, a curiosity and exploration, which you or I, as the facilitator, can't guarantee an outcome, right? I mean, people might, but I'm not going to make shit up for you, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen when we unlock this box, but you know more about yourself than you did before you started. And if we come back to the original inquiry of true self-expression, hinders us from true self-expression or showing up as our wild and true selves in the world is that we don't know who we are. Well, then surely you've got to go and experiment and like try some shit in order to know.
My God.
So like there's a disconnect, I think, between that, like, I want to know who I am and I want to be more wild and true, but I'm not willing to try a bunch of stuff.
Yes, I'm not willing to play. That's what it comes down to. Play is seen as childish, it's seen as, you know, frivolous, and you're right, absolutely, it's not goal oriented. And at the same time, you know, so that's why I bring in the themes. So for example, the last month was realizing our imagined worlds. So all of those things that we basically put on a pedestal to say, well, this is my dream, but it's completely out of reach. I can never, ever, ever attain that. And we did a whole session about how we actually could bring that in. You know, it's not as broad as manifesting, because it was actually very specific into channeling ourselves into allowing ourselves to kind of gently explore our own limitations and boundaries and really feeling into them. So it's not like you're trying to push through them, but understanding why they're there. And again, this is not in the head, this is all in the body and in the senses. And then you're bringing all of that onto the paper. So one of the things was I always get them to create a sacred container, because it's basically it's like it is a yantra, essentially. It's a sacred space which is there to hold all of our expressed energies. And so the masculine is the border, it's the four sides. And typically, you know, I'd actually don't ever direct people to say, do this on the outside edges of the paper. I have had one person, because she was really short, she didn't go up to the edges of the paper. It was like a lot short, like further down, which I thought was quite interesting anyway. But last month, when I was getting them to explore their boundaries, I said, deliberately make the container smaller for yourself. And I think that even just messed with people's minds a bit, because it's like, well, I've got this paper, so, you know, I kind of know where the edge is. But then again, if I'm deliberately making it smaller, I'm thinking about, well, where am I making myself smaller in everyday life?
Well, and also, so I do this with people. I mean, I love the way that your work is outside the box, right? Like it's dealing with the stuff that people have every single day, but in a different way, in a way that scrambles their brains, right? Scrambles their minds, so that they can come at it, so they can understand stuff different, get a different perspective. And that's where, you know, although we do it in very different ways, both do that thing of like giving people an experience of something other than what they've always known.
Exactly.
So, for example, if you make the container smaller, right? I do that with goals. I'm like, what would happen if we just make your goal achievable? Like, what if we made the goal so achievable that you could do it tomorrow? And most of the people that I work with, and this isn't true for everybody, have never considered that. Like, but if I'm honest, I never make goals I can achieve. It's like, yes. I noticed this about you. And what would happen if you did? What would your
Yeah.
life be like? How would you show up in the world if you were someone who made your goals achievable
Yeah.
and hit them over and over again? Because we can so get into that place of like, and we don't even know what we don't know about ourselves. We can't see the unseen.
This is it as well. It's kind of giving yourself that permission, because we are really scared of our limitations, let's face it as well. We don't want to look at them. We don't want to kind of see where, you know, where we're cutting ourselves off, basically. We kind of want to complain about it, but we don't want to really directly look at it. And I'm equally to blame here. I definitely have my own issues around this, as we all do. So with, you know, it's allowing yourself to play, to bring that essence of, let's just be really exploratory. And there's no judgment, and there's no kind of, as you say, there's no kind of goal. We're just looking to see what's there and kind of having fun with it. And that's the key, because when you can have fun and you can bring all of that, you know, you can cultivate all of that compassion, self-love. It's so much easier in a container of fun, isn't it, than in a container of, well, we've got to fix this.
Yeah. And you know, ultimately the piece that we're looking to find is that it is the sacred or the sanctity of who is the real you, who's the true you. And the best way to find that person is to do something that distracts all of the masks.
Yes.
And so, like, you know, one of the things that I found when I first discovered yoga, like I'd been trying to make my body be different for most of my life. But when I first started when I did my yoga teacher training, and when I really got into doing yoga, the thing that kept me doing yoga was that for the first time in my life, my body was doing something, my breath was doing something, even this thing called a drishti. So there was even somewhere to focus, and it's like all of me, there was something for all of me to do.
Yes.
And again, this is what comes into your work, and it's like all of you, every bit of you has something to focus on. It's like, you know, as a neurodivergent person, I think this is where it comes from. Every part of when I'm stimming, when all of me is doing something, the real me can suddenly go, oh, and has an opportunity to come out. Do you know what I mean?
There's a different,
I've got to give all of these layers of me that are normally so in charge and have an identity perception and show up in a certain way and blah, 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 do things, and have been running the show for years very successfully, you know, let's thank them. But when they all have jobs, right, and I'm kind of imagining this, you know, goddess with all these different arms, all of these parts of me, a pen, all of a sudden there's just the truth, the essence, the magical, playful part of me left. And then I get with her, and that's how I see your work in a way. It's like you're giving all of these limbs of your of the person participating something to do, and whilst they are occupied, the essence can peek out just for a moment.
Yeah, I love that. I love that kind of description of it. Yeah, I absolutely see that. I think as well there's a piece about stepping out of, you know, our just kind of everyday habits of being, you know, and allowing ourselves to really, it's almost, I can't really explain. I'm kind of very non-verbal today. It's I wish I could just like gesture to you. You know, I suppose it's like that analogy of seeing the wood for the trees. When we're so focused on being a particular way, just because that's what is, you know, it's kind of what is supposed to be for us. It's what's expected of us. Then we just follow that automatically. We become automatons. And when we kind of step out of that, or allow all those other parts of ourselves to step out of that, and I kind of see it as like the logical mind brain is kind of over here, kind of just having a little rest or maybe a meditation, and all of the other parts are around here kind of doing all of this crazy stuff. And then we integrate back together. We don't leave them like that. So we integrate back together. And the mind, you know, once you've kind of integrated and obviously that's not instant. It can take days, weeks, months, and there are levels of integration. But when you come back to everyday life, out of that space, your mind typically does kind of go, oh wow, that was awesome on so many levels, and you have such clarity about parts of your life and how you typically approach things that you could never honestly have seen if you hadn't taken that step apart from yourself.
If people listening to this have been like, okay, this all sounds amazing, what the hell are you talking about, where can I come and do it? I mean, obviously I'm going to put everything in the show notes, but where's the best place for them to come and learn more about what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so everything is on my website at zoekmfoster.com, and on Instagram I typically share pretty much everything there as well. That's at Zoe K M Foster. And I also have a Substack, which I'm starting to put more of my writing and kind of bits and bobs, as well as my own podcast, into. And yeah, I'll give you the link for that because it's a bit longer. So.
Well, like I said, I'll pop everything in so people can see it. Thank you so much for coming and having this chat with me.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you want to come and have another little chat with us, we're going to dive into Sacrosanct Secrets and carry on over there. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.